People who have gone out for a pack of cigarettes and never went back to your family. What happened after you left? This is my throwaway. Got married right out of high school. Everything was going well, but we were young and both were our first partners. Came home early one day and walked in on my wife with another man. Standard insanity ensued, followed by her begging for forgiveness, and we went to months of counseling. Everything seemed well and dandy. She seemed like a totally different woman and couldn't live without me. One day I log into our desktop PC and her Facebook is loaded and there are multiple messages, and I had to look. I found exactly what I knew I would find. It crushed me, but I acted like nothing happened. That weekend I packed up my favorite clothes and belongings that meant a lot to me and snuck them to the car. Sunday evening I said, hey, I'm going to take the dogs to the dog park and hike for a few hours. When I left, I texted our neighbor to see if anyone showed up at the house. She replied pretty quickly that a male visitor was by very quickly. I told her goodbye and the dogs, and I just drove. I had a decent savings and thought, F it, start off somewhere new, and that is what I did. My ex-wife didn't even try and contact me until around lunchtime the next day. When I didn't respond, she blew me up with photos and videos of her with multiple men and about how bad of a lover I was. It fed me up, but I just kept trucking. I ended up in a smaller town where I saw someone was hiring for my trade. Years later, I remarried to the best human ever. I went home not long ago and my mom posted a picture of us at a gathering. My ex hit up my Facebook and asked if we could meet for a cup of coffee. She would like some closure. I obviously would like as well. I have to say, for all the resentment and hatred I had toward this woman, our conversation was pleasant and I felt better after we talked. She understood why I left, she apologized deeply, many times, and didn't try to blame me for anything. After an hour and a little bit of tears, awkward as hell in public, hahaha, she asked if it was okay to get a hug. We hugged and said our goodbyes. Once I got home I told my wife about the visit and she got awkward for a few minutes. She left the room and I didn't follow. I thought, oh, I'm sleeping on the couch tonight. 5 minutes later, she came back crying and just gave me the biggest hug ever. She told me she forgot what I went through and she was sorry and glad our life is good. Closing, I left a terrible human for the best human ever. 1. Yes, I took the dogs. I loved those dogs more than most of my family. Sadly, they have passed, old age, and I can't wait to see them again, but thank you for the kind words. 2. Yes, we got divorced. It was a pretty quick and painless process. My best friend growing up ended up being a divorce lawyer. When I took off I called him and provided him with the video evidence. Was a pretty simple process after that. When I was 18, I moved out from my abusive father. I was commuting to college at the time and I had morning classes, so the night before I packed my car with as much of my stuff as I could, and set off. One of my professors that I regularly talked to after class noticed that my car was full of clothes and asked if everything was okay. Over lunch I explained my situation, and he offered to take me in. I had already made arrangements to live with my mother. After my classes for the day were over I went home for the first time since I was a child to live with my mother. I slept on the couch for months before getting my own bed, and we didn't always have the money to eat, but we made it work. I have seen my father one time since then because he swore to me that he had changed. That night he proceeded to get wasted and tried to put his hands on me. I haven't seen him since, and I have no regrets. Edit. Thank you for the gold and silver. I didn't expect it. I was just wanting to finally share my experience with a wider audience, and maybe bring hope to anyone else in a situation like mine. Edit 2. Just to clear up some confusion that I've noticed in the replies, I am a male. Put hands on me is a slang term for starting a fight. I am not sure if it is popular slang, or regional slang, Southeast US, but at no point was I sexually abused. I apologize if there was any confusion. I was 10 years old when my mom and dad split up. We had been expecting it, but I didn't know that my mom had packed up suitcases for herself, my sister, and I. One day we went to school like everything was normal, and went to my mom's parents after school. It wasn't unusual for us to have dinner there. But then Mom sat us down and told us we'd be staying there for a while. Ended up being 6 years before we got our own place. I never got to go back to my bedroom again. My dad got remarried and his wife's daughter moved in and repainted my room. When I had to visit them, I slept on the couch while she slept in my room. I still regret not being able to say goodbye to my sister 12 years ago. I said goodbye to my brother and my mom, but I was the only one who knew I would never come back. I moved 300 miles away. I have seen my brother and my mom twice since then. I haven't seen my sister since I put her down for her nap that day, before I knew I was leaving. After I left, my mom got married. My sister went to live with her grandparents. My brother chose to be homeless rather than let our mom drag him around different cities in the middle of a school year. I was able to finish school, which wouldn't have happened if I stayed. I stopped trying to accidentally walk in front of traffic or overdose on my prescriptions. Started eating food. Got basically blackmailed into seeing my mom after 6 years while my ex pretended we were together. I finally found a family that actually liked me. Met my boyfriend. Friends for 8 years. Together for 4. Got my own cat. Have my own apartment with bills paid early. Overall, it has been great, and between my mom popping into my life. When I was 16, I moved out without telling my stepdad, but my mom wasn't on it. And I just moved in with my grandparents. I left on a Friday. Got all my stuff in just 2 trips. I was told he didn't even notice I was gone the first weekend. He was pretty mad once he figured it out, but it was all mostly a non-event. Everything turned out okay for me. It will have been 21 years, this September. Half answer. My dad died when I was pretty young. My mom eventually remarried to a pretty cool guy when I was young. He was honestly an amazing dad, and when my mom got sick when I was 12, he was absolutely incredible, taking care of everyone, and reaffirming that I was his son. When my mom died, it was just me and him for a few years, and there were some amazing times. He made sure I was seeing a counselor, and we did family things on the weekend. My friends used to joke that he wasn't even my biological dad, and he still made more time for me, and did more things for me than their bio dads did. When I was 15, he got remarried. I didn't exactly like my new stepmom, but I didn't hate her. I think I just thought that the relationship wouldn't last and he'd move on to someone better. Then they got married and it was kinda weird. I did get an amazing baby brother from that, not all bad. My dad died when I was 17. Literally taken out by an undiagnosed severe allergy. My stepmom got me from school and drove me to the hospital, and when my dad passed away, she handed me my baby brother and said she needed a minute by herself. I never saw her again. She was much younger than my dad, and was an ex-foster kid with no family or best friends to support her, and I think she looked at her newborn baby and the kid her dead husband inherited and just couldn't handle it. I sure know I wasn't prepared to handle it, but my mom and my biological dad had been ex-foster care kids, and mom told me a few F-ed stories, so I wasn't going to let that happen to me or my brother. I do sometimes feel a little resentful that I can't have the normal life. I am working too much, and I have a 6-year-old to figure out, to consider college, but I don't want my family to just be cycles of poverty and dead-end jobs. Edit. Wow guys. I am touched by the response. I have full custody. My stepdad adopted me when my mom died, so for all intents and purposes, my brother is legally my brother. Afraid I can't give too many details. I want to adopt him, and there's a court case or two that I don't want to compromise just in case. Movies have told me that anyway. Stepmom will probably be charged with abandonment when she can be located, but so far we haven't heard anything. I've always been worried that she had a mental health break and either killed herself. I used to call up locally and ask for Jane Does that fit her, hey, coping mechanisms, right? Or she's had a mental health break and something snapped. Abandonment didn't really fit what I knew of her, and I remember that she had some kind of mental health problems, It's not like we talked about it though. She could have gone off her meds in the chaos and snapped. I'm more worried than angry, but my first concern will always be for my favorite little tyke. We are doing pretty well. We have a support worker who has been fantastic, helping us get access to free and reduced cost services. I'm also pretty thrifty. I YouTubed how to knit socks and fix clothing, and thrift stores are great. I don't live near a major city, and so it's not as expensive as it could have been. Being frugal also helps. There's usually always good stuff out there if you know how to ask for help, and my dad always told me the hardest thing but the most important thing to do was to suck up your pride and ask for help. I'm getting better about that, but it's hard. My dad making me do therapy helped a bunch to admit when I need help. He said that needing help wasn't about not being capable, but about being smart. That if you're carrying an expensive TV you could carry it by yourself, but you're smarter if you grab a friend. I'm almost finished an apprenticeship right now, and I'm in a union that's decent enough that wives used to drop off casseroles and leave cribs and stuff on our porch. Everyone should be involved in their community. I wouldn't have survived without everyone willing to go to bat for me. I'm working pretty hard because I'm incredibly fortunate that I met good people along the way. I owe them a lot. I also work part-time at a nursery helping with plants and stuff on weekends for the staff discount and free stuff. I taken home more than a few half-dead fruit trees and vegetable seedlings. The more I work, the more I can throw into savings. It's morbid, but I want to make sure if I die, he's not frantically worrying about paying for that. It's not exactly a good feeling. My bro and I have been working on expanding our tiny garden to try and offset the cost of food, and he seems to like gardening just as much as my dad did. Last year we didn't buy a single potato or any herbs. It's been the best low-cost high-involved activity we're doing, and it sometimes makes me feel less guilty that I can't be there more for him like our dad was for me. We have glass pasta jars and tin cans growing basil and rosemary right now. I told my bro if he can keep them alive all year without me needing to intervene, we can look at adopting chickens. He specifically wants 2 chickens named Chic Ken and Chic Barbie because he's funnier than I am. I am working a bunch now because I want him to be in a better position in the future. My dad left a small, but decent amount in a trust, and I pulled from it when I first got custody when I was scrambling to afford everything. I want to replace everything I took, and also make sure he can afford to do the things that I couldn't when growing up. When he's in high school and wants to celebrate by going to Mexico, then he's going to Mexico. I do miss the stuff I can do. I've never not had responsibilities. I am still friends with people from school, and they redoing cross-country adventures and dropping money on expensive stuff. It's such a weird idea that they can just go to music festivals without worrying about anything while I am trying to find a detergent that doesn't set the bro's eczema off. Won't he trade him for the world though? We have saving accounts and insurance policies, and I am probably better off than a lot of people. The comments have been incredible with people offering help from everywhere. I needed that help when I was 17 and scared out of my absolute mind. I am almost 24 now and I am stable, but paranoid and weird for sure. If you'd like to donate, please direct them to local organizations fighting the good fight. The difficult part of the story is basically over, until he hits teenage years probably. God knows how I am going to handle that. That's a problem for future me. I don't need that kind of help anymore. And I am moving into the phase of life where I just want to give back to people that have helped me, by passing it on. I joined Reddit because I saw the post that said today you, tomorrow me, that's my philosophy in life. There are a lot of people out there like me, and they deserve to be able to grow garlic in old jams with their family just as much as I did. Growing up, my mother was pretty abusive, mostly emotional, to me and my little sister. This included basically fabricating a false reality, that my dad had divorced my mother and left her penniless and left the state, as well as isolating us from other family members on the basis that they were bad people. Probably the worst thing she did, which I still deal with today, was turning me and my little sister against each other in these fucked-up scenarios. Basically, her drug and or alcohol-induced rage of the day would always fall on one of us. However, whoever told on the other sibling that they did something to anger my mother would face her wrath, and the other sibling would have a brief respite. This went on since I was 8 or so. I grew up hating my sister. After I got older, I found my best friend in high school, and he helped me understand just how fucked up my situation was, given that I assumed that's how family life was since we were so isolated, no TV or internet, and that my mother was also a teacher at both my elementary and middle school. She had control over everything. At 18 I left my house and moved in with my friend. However, it wasn't forever. He was joining the army at the end of school, and I had to think of someone to stay with. So I found my dad, states away. I took a long shot and asked him if I could stay with him. He accepted. I got everything I owned in the world, which fit in a truck bed, and while most kids were going off to college, I was going to start over in a completely different place with a father I didn't know. It turned out my dad was a decent guy. He wasn't a saint by any means, but leagues better than my mother. He helped me get a driver's license and eventually helped me join the military, where I have just finished my first year in. I haven't seen my little sis in 2 years though. And she still hates me. Even though she's 18, she hasn't left her mother, and since I left she's become closer with her. I regret not trying harder to be there for her every day. But as for my life now, I have 3 years left in the military, then I hope to go to college and become a pilot. None of which I ever thought of when I was living under my mother's roof. Edit. Holy F. This blew up so much from what I expected initially. Thanks so much for everyone's kind words and advice. Just knowing that other people are out there rooting for me has lifted my spirits so much, and now I really have to make it ha ha ha. Edit number 2. Thank you so much for the gold and silver, you beautiful bastards.